Hey everyone, today we're going to dive into the life of Catherine the Great, a woman who rose from being a minor German princess to becoming one of the most powerful rulers in history. A woman who ruled Russia like a man and secretly played Europe as if it were her own personal chessboard. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Where you are right now matters, whether it's morning coffee in Hanoi, midnight in New York, or a lunch break in Berlin. I want you to sit back and let me take you on a journey. Now, let's listen to the compelling story in this video of mine. You're a child again, and the world smells faintly of damp wood and candle wax. The small principality of Anhalt-Zerbst, your home, is neither rich nor powerful, but it's where you learn to listen carefully. Because in these halls, whispers travel faster than footsteps. Your name isn't Catherine yet. It's Sophie Friederich August von Anhalt-Zerbst. Your father is a minor German prince, your mother obsessed with status. From the start, you know you'll be married off like a political pawn, and you sharpen yourself accordingly. Learn languages, master court etiquette, and understand how to smile while calculating who's watching. By the time you're 15, destiny calls. Not from Germany, but from far off, snow-covered Russia. The Empress Elizabeth of Russia has no children, but she has a plan. Marry her awkward nephew and heir, Grand Duke Peter of Holstein-Gottorp, to someone suitable. That someone is you. At first, you can hardly believe it. Russia? It's vast, alien, and full of stories about barbarian winters and opulent palaces. Your mother is ecstatic, your father, pragmatic, you're terrified, but intrigued. The journey to Russia is a sensory overload. You smell horses, sweat, and frost on the road to St. Petersburg. And when you arrive, everything feels oversized. Palaces glitter with gold leaf, guards in dazzling uniforms stand like statues, and the Russian Orthodox Church looms with incense-heavy air. You're baptized into the Orthodox faith, abandoning your Lutheran roots and taking a new name, Catherine. In this moment, you understand something profound. Survival here will require transformation, not just obedience. Your future husband, Peter, is underwhelming. He's immature, obsessed with Prussia's Frederick the Great, and seems more interested in playing toy soldier than in ruling an empire or loving you. But you've read enough history to know power is rarely about affection. You decide early. If Peter is weak, then you must be strong. Court life is dangerous. You smell intrigue everywhere, perfume covering poison, laughter masking jealousy. You adapt by listening more than speaking, by aligning yourself with powerful friends, and by charming even your enemies. Empress Elizabeth takes a liking to you, impressed by your diligence and fluency in Russian. Privately, you start thinking, what if your life here could be more than ceremonial? What if you could actually lead? Your marriage is loveless, but you play your role, giving birth to an heir, Paul. Whispers about whether Peter is even the father don't bother you. Russia needs an heir, and you've delivered. Meanwhile, Peter alienates nearly everyone, nobles, clergy, army officers. He adores Prussia, Russia's enemy at the time, and openly ridicules Orthodox traditions. You, by contrast, embrace Russia's soul. You wear Russian styles, speak Russian in public, and visit churches with genuine reverence. People start to notice and to compare. You spend nights reading political philosophy, studying Voltaire and Montesquieu. You think about power differently than those around you. Russia is massive but fragile, caught between European influence and its own traditions. You believe you could do better, if you ever got the chance. And chance is coming. By the time Empress Elizabeth dies in 1762, Peter III is emperor, and chaos reigns. Peter insults the church, undermines the army, and even talks about giving back lands Russia fought hard to win. The people murmur, "This is not our czar." You keep your head down, smile, and quietly gather allies. Guardsmen, nobles, and politicians. One by one, you bring them into your confidence. The young girl from Anhalt-Zerbst is long gone. In her place is Catherine, pragmatic and fearless, ready to gamble everything. And deep down, you already know, this marriage, this throne, it will all be yours, one way or another. You wake up in a palace that feels more like a battlefield than a home. Every glance, every whisper, carries an undertone of danger. You've been empress for only a short while by marriage, but the Russian court is already boiling over with resentment toward Peter III, your husband. You can almost taste it in the air, the sourness of betrayal, the metallic tang of opportunity. Peter is blind to it all. He's like a child playing with tin soldiers, parading around in Prussian uniforms and obsessing over Frederick the Great. He treats Russia's proud army officers with condescension, slashes religious traditions as if they're old curtains to be replaced, and plans to withdraw from the 7 Years' War in ways that insult generations of sacrifice. You, however, keep your composure, smiling at his eccentricities in public while quietly forming bonds with those he's alienating. In secret, your rooms become a safe haven for disillusioned nobles and guardsmen. Grigory Orlov, one of your lovers, emerges as a key player, not just for his affection, but for his connections in the powerful Imperial Guard. You don't yet know it, but Orlov and his brothers will become the muscle behind your eventual gamble for power. You walk these palace halls like a tightrope walker, every step rehearsed, every gesture calculated. The tension reaches its peak when Peter begins talking openly about replacing you. He's considering divorce, perhaps even locking you away in a convent. That's when survival stops being theoretical. It becomes immediate. You can almost hear the clock ticking on your life. If Peter divorces you, you lose not just the throne, but your son, your influence, and possibly your freedom. So you act. You start whispering to those same disillusioned guards, painting a picture of Russia as it could be, led by someone strong, someone who loves the nation, someone who respects its traditions. Peter is no Russian, you hint, but I am. These conversations are quiet, punctuated by the clink of wine glasses and the rustle of silk gowns, but they ripple like pebbles in water. When word reaches you that Peter plans to arrest you, you don't wait. The Orlov brothers gather their men. Loyal regiments pledge themselves to you. The coup begins not with bloodshed, but with decisive speed. One morning in July 1762, you ride to the Izmailovsky Regiment barracks, dressed not as a delicate consort, but as a commander in military uniform. The soldiers cheer, swords clatter in salute, and you feel the weight of destiny press into your hands. Peter, shocked and powerless, abdicates almost immediately. Within days, he's under arrest, and within weeks, he's dead, officially from natural causes, though few believe it. You don't speak of it, but you know what court life teaches everyone. Accidents happen when power changes hands. Now you stand crowned as Catherine II, not by divine inheritance, but by audacity. The courtiers who once treated you as a foreign accessory now kneel. You've seized the throne in a world dominated by men, and you intend to keep it. But already you understand the paradox. The coup gave you power, but it also put a target on your back. Every day will now be a balancing act, managing noble ambitions, calming church anxieties, and keeping the army fiercely loyal. That night, as the palace grows quiet and the candles burn low, you allow yourself one private moment of relief. You've won the first game, but the war against rivals at home and soon the powers abroad has only begun. And you're ready for it. You wake to a dawn drenched in gold light as it filters through the ornate windows of the Winter Palace. The weight of the crown on your head is more metaphorical than physical, yet it feels heavier than steel. Overnight, you have gone from an endangered consort to the sole ruler of the Russian Empire. But power in Russia is like ice. It looks solid, yet cracks appear quickly if you stand in the wrong spot. The first hours after the coup are chaos. Guards whisper nervously, ministers shuffle papers with trembling hands, and foreign ambassadors demand audiences. Everyone is trying to figure out who you are as a ruler. Are you just another temporary regent who will eventually fall like others before you? Or are you something entirely different? A woman capable of ruling like a man, perhaps even more ruthlessly. You intend to make sure it's the latter. You start with the army because the soldiers are your foundation. Without their loyalty, you're just another ambitious aristocrat with a fancy crown. You ride out to the barracks, your posture rigid, your voice clear and commanding. Russia has a new sovereign, you announce, and she fights for you as much as for the empire. The roar of approval that greets you sends a chill down your spine. These men, the same who toppled your husband, will not hesitate to topple you if you falter. Next, you secure the nobility. You understand their hunger, more land, more influence, fewer restrictions. You promise reforms, hint at freedoms, and pledge to respect their ancient privileges. It's a calculated gamble because deep down, you already plan to centralize power in your hands. But for now, you give them what they want to hear. They nod, some eagerly, others cautiously, but all of them know you mean business. Then there's the church. Russia's Orthodox Church is powerful, deeply woven into national identity. Peter III had alienated it, mocking traditions and stripping sacred icons. You reverse this immediately. In grand public ceremonies, you attend services with visible humility, crossing yourself like a lifelong believer. The church leaders, sensing a shift, offer their blessing, one of the most valuable shields any ruler can have. Still, you know these outward moves are only half the job. The other half is silent and secret, consolidating loyalty from within your own court. You dismiss Peter's closest allies, quietly exiling some, rewarding others who switched sides early. You also start shaping a network of informants, spies among servants, guards, and secretaries. If someone dares plot against you, you'll know before the ink dries on their plans. But there's one more obstacle: your gender. In a world where kings dominate, you're a woman who seized power by force. You can already hear the whispers in Vienna, Paris, and London. How long can she last? You decide to meet their skepticism head on. You adopt a persona not of a fragile empress, but of an iron-willed monarch. In court sessions, your voice is sharp and commanding, your gaze steady, and your presence overwhelming. Nobles bow deeper, ministers speak more carefully, and foreign ambassadors leave unsure whether they've just met an enlightened reformer or a new conqueror. Your personal life also becomes a tool of statecraft. Lovers like Orlov aren't just passions, like they're instruments of loyalty and influence. People gossip, yes, but they also understand that Catherine does not hide or apologize. You are building an image, bold, unapologetic, and dangerously independent. Late at night, you retreat to your study, where maps of Russia and Europe sprawl across your desk. You run your fingers over borders, rivers, and ports, imagining how far Russia could reach under your rule. The Ottoman Empire to the south, Poland to the west, Sweden to the north. Every neighbor is either a threat or an opportunity, and you intend to treat them all as pieces on a board. Tonight, you realize something. Peter III's reign was weak because he ruled like a servant of Prussia, not as the master of Russia. You, however, will rule with steel in your spine, and in doing so, you'll make the empire greater than it has ever been, no matter what anyone thinks about your gender. The Winter Palace now feels less like a borrowed stage and more like your command center. Each hall echoes with your footsteps, your orders, and your vision of Russia's future. You've taken power not just to survive, but to transform. And your eyes are set on something far bigger than securing your throne. You want to make Russia a modern empire that rivals any power in Europe. You start with what everyone can see: culture and learning. St. Petersburg, already an architectural jewel, becomes your playground of progress. You open the doors to artists, writers, and thinkers. French intellectuals, German engineers, Italian architects all find their way into your orbit. You invite the philosophies of Enlightenment Europe into Russia, not as idle parlor conversation, but as blueprints for governance. Voltaire writes to you like an old friend, and you respond with wit and vision. Diderot, the encyclopedia master, visits, astonished that a monarch actually listens to his ideas. But your modernization efforts are not just about talk. They're about steel and sweat. Roads are expanded, trade routes improved, and you push for industrial development. You know that to compete with Europe's great powers, Russia must move beyond feudal backwardness. You issue charters giving nobles more freedom to manage their estates, expecting them to invest and innovate. Some do, others cling to the old ways, but you don't waste time arguing. You simply create incentives that make progress profitable. Education becomes your secret weapon. You envision schools not just for noble boys, but for girls too, something radical in an empire still bound by tradition. You form the Smolny Institute for Noble Maidens, a statement that women can learn, think, and contribute beyond the walls of kitchens and drawing rooms. You know your own story, how you came to Russia unprepared for its complexities, so you intend to prepare the next generation to be sharper, better, and bolder. Your reforms win applause in some corners, but raise eyebrows in others. Nobles enjoy new privileges, but fear you might eventually threaten their control over serfs. The church smiles at your devotion, but eyes your Enlightenment ideas with suspicion. And the common people? They remain largely outside the glow of your reforms, bound to the land, tied to nobles, their lives still harsh. You know this contradiction can't last forever, but for now, you need stability, and you need the nobility firmly on your side. All the while, your personal brand as the enlightened empress takes shape. You paint yourself as someone who can converse with philosophers in the morning and inspect army regiments in the afternoon. You even commission a nakaz, a massive legal document inspired by Montesquieu and Beccaria, advocating for rational laws, reduced torture, and the elimination of cruel punishments. It shocks conservative circles, but earns admiration across Europe. They start comparing you to Peter the Great, not as his widow or successor, but as his rival in vision. Yet, beneath the glow of candles and ideals, you also keep a dagger of realism. You know the Enlightenment speaks of liberty and equality, but Russia's strength still depends on serf labor and the loyalty of powerful landowners. So, your reforms move carefully, calculated to look progressive while protecting the foundations of imperial power. You give enough change to inspire admiration abroad, but not enough to spark revolt at home. And then there's your secret war game, an obsession growing quietly in your mind. For all the reforms in learning, you still see Europe as a chessboard. You are determined that Russia will no longer be an afterthought in European politics, but a queen on the board, capable of outmaneuvering kings. The Ottomans to the south are weak, Poland is fractured, Sweden is restless, and Britain and France are distracted with their own ambitions. You start thinking about territory not as maps in a book, but as moves in a personal strategy. One evening, as you stand on a balcony overlooking the Neva River, the wind sharp and cool, you make yourself a promise. Russia will not just copy Europe, it will lead it. And Catherine, the once timid German princess, will be the one to make it happen. The halls of the Winter Palace buzz with more than just politics and reform. They hum with whispers about your lovers. For most rulers, romance is private. For you, it's strategic, dangerous, and oddly liberating. Court life is a world of masks, and relationships are no exception. You've long known that emotions in this place are a luxury, so you use them as tools, as carefully chosen as any diplomat or general. Grigory Orlov remains at your side after the coup, his loyalty unmatched. He's not just a lover, he's a symbol of military power and personal devotion. Without him and his brothers, the coup might have failed. You reward him not only with affection, but also with titles, wealth, and influence. The court grumbles. Some call him arrogant, others see him as a puppet master, but you ignore the noise. Loyalty is rare, and you value it above gossip. Yet, you're not a woman to cling blindly. When passion fades or political value shifts, you move on. You do it without cruelty, but with precision, ensuring former lovers leave with honor and wealth rather than resentment. This, too, is strategy. In a court where grudges can grow into daggers, it pays to keep broken hearts well fed. One man who captures your attention after Orlov is Grigory Potemkin, a brilliant mind wrapped in military uniform and unshakable charisma. Potemkin is different. Not just a lover, but a visionary. He understands your ambitions, sees Russia not as it is, but as it could be, and has the courage to pursue those dreams with you. Together, you share ideas that would reshape borders, build fleets, and plant new cities. People will later talk about Potemkin villages as symbols of illusion, but the real illusion is thinking Potemkin was ever just your paramour. He is a partner in empire building. Of course, these relationships spark gossip across Europe. Pamphlets and letters depict you as a woman of insatiable appetites, ruling with seduction rather than intellect. You read them, sometimes laughing, sometimes annoyed, but never ashamed. Let them talk, you tell yourself. As long as I hold power, their words are nothing. The truth is that your personal life and your political life intertwine because you choose men who strengthen your position, whether through military connections, administrative brilliance, or diplomatic skill. But there's also loneliness. Even surrounded by admirers, ministers, and lovers, you often feel like the only player who sees the entire board. Your decisions are final, your risks, yours alone. Late at night, as candlelight flickers across your study, you sometimes imagine how life might have been had you remained in Germany, married to some minor prince, living quietly. But those thoughts don't linger. You chose this life, and you embrace it fully. Your public persona grows larger than life. An empress who commands armies, rewrites laws, and still enjoys poetry, music, and, yes, romance. People compare you to the great rulers of history, Elizabeth I of England, Peter the Great, even Julius Caesar. They see in you a contradiction, feminine yet iron-willed, romantic yet calculating. You lean into it, knowing perception is power. Through these relationships, you also gain insight into human nature. You learn who flatters for favor, who truly cares, and who plots in secret. And plots, there are always plots. Some of your lovers serve as your eyes and ears, alerting you to whispers of conspiracy or disloyalty. This network keeps you one step ahead in a court where one wrong move can mean exile, or worse. By the end of these early years, one thing is certain: your private life is no mere indulgence. It's part of your political arsenal, as sharp as any sword or treaty. You are not ashamed of using charm, love, or desire to secure your rule. Because for Catherine the Great, the personal is political, and politics is always war by other means. The quiet of your private chambers is deceptive. Behind those silk curtains and candlelit walls lies a mind running at full speed. Reforms and lovers aside, you are obsessed with something grander, a secret war game that most of Europe doesn't even realize you're playing. You've secured your throne, modernized your court, and charmed philosophers. But now you want to push beyond Russia's borders and secure its place as one of the great powers. You start where ambition always begins, with maps. The empire is vast, but its borders are vulnerable, especially to the south and west. The Ottoman Empire sits like a sleeping dragon, controlling access to the Black Sea and limiting Russia's trade potential. Poland is fractured and politically weak, its nobility too divided to resist foreign influence. Sweden, though diminished, still dreams of Baltic dominance. And beyond all of them are Britain, France, and Austria, each eager to exploit Russian missteps. Your plan isn't just about military might, it's about chess-like precision. You build alliances not with loud proclamations, but with whispers and ink on treaties. Austria, under Maria Theresa and her son Joseph II, becomes a potential partner. Both share an interest in curbing Ottoman influence. Prussia, once an enemy, is approached cautiously, even as its king, Frederick the Great, watches you with both admiration and suspicion. But alliances alone aren't enough. You need intelligence. You quietly expand Russia's spy network, placing agents in European courts, naval ports, and even coffee houses where officers and bureaucrats gossip after too much wine. Reports come in thick and fast: troop movements, supply shortages, secret talks. Knowledge is power, and you intend to have more of it than anyone else. Meanwhile, you strengthen the military. Under your direction, Russia's navy expands, focusing on fleets capable of striking in the Black Sea and even projecting power into the Mediterranean. Your army, already feared, undergoes new training programs influenced by Western techniques, ensuring discipline and efficiency. To outsiders, it looks like standard modernization. To you, it's preparation for something bigger. Then there's the psychological game. You play Europe's diplomats like cards, presenting yourself alternately as the enlightened reformer and the cunning warrior. With Voltaire and Diderot praising your intellect, European salons buzz with talk of Russia's philosopher queen, making them underestimate your strategic appetite. They see an empress interested in culture and learning, not realizing that your libraries and academies are cover for the forging of a war machine. Your inner circle is small but loyal. Grigory Potemkin, more than a lover, becomes your co-architect of empire. He envisions new fortresses, ports, and even entire cities along the Black Sea, plans that others call madness, but which you see as destiny. Late at night, you two pore over blueprints and maps, debating how to position troops and where to build the next naval base. It's not just strategy, it's shared vision, and it's intoxicating. You keep much of this secret, even from your own court. The nobles are content with land grants and privileges. They don't need to know about your ambitions beyond the borders. The church is content with your piety. It doesn't need to know about the coming wars that might spill Orthodox blood. Even foreign diplomats who praise your reforms fail to grasp what's coming. One evening, as the Neva River freezes under a pale winter moon, you make your decision. The war game begins now. You will move slowly, deliberately, and without warning. When Europe finally understands what Catherine the Great is doing, it will be too late to stop you. The first move in your grand war game is aimed squarely at the Ottoman Empire. For centuries, the Ottomans had dominated the Black Sea, blocking Russia from warm water ports essential for trade and naval power. But you see weakness where others see strength. The empire to your south is bloated, plagued by internal dissent, and led by sultans more concerned with palace intrigue than frontier defense. You decide the time is ripe to strike, and in doing so, reshape the balance of power in Europe. The year 1768 gives you your opening. A border skirmish, seemingly minor, spirals into a diplomatic crisis, and suddenly Russia and the Ottoman Empire are at war. Many in Europe assume Russia will falter. After all, the Ottomans have fought great powers for centuries. But you have something they don't: preparation. Your reorganized army is disciplined, better supplied, and commanded by officers who understand your vision of relentless expansion. The early battles shock the world. Russian troops sweep through Ottoman territories in the northern Black Sea, winning victory after victory. Then comes one of your proudest moments: the Battle of Chesma in 1770. Your fleet, built in part from scratch, sails into the Aegean Sea, ambushes the Ottoman navy, and obliterates it in a night of fire and chaos. For the first time in history, Russia projects power deep into the Mediterranean, stunning European observers who once mocked Russia as a landlocked giant. The war is brutal, yes, but it's also transformative. You gain not only land, but also prestige. Russian soldiers and sailors fight with a new sense of purpose. This isn't just about borders, it's about proving that Russia belongs among Europe's top-tier empires. The Orthodox Christians in Ottoman lands see you as a liberator, further enhancing your image as the champion of faith against a Muslim power. Diplomatically, you move with equal precision. Austria quietly approves of your moves, seeing Ottoman weakness as beneficial. France, traditionally allied with the Ottomans, seethes but is too distracted by internal troubles to intervene effectively. Britain watches nervously but hesitates to act, fearing confrontation will disrupt its global trade interests. You play all sides masterfully, ensuring that no major coalition forms to stop your advance. The Treaty of Küçük-Kaynarca in 1774 marks a turning point. You gain significant territory, access to the Black Sea, and, most importantly, the right to protect Orthodox Christians in Ottoman domains. On paper, it's a humanitarian clause. In reality, it's a loaded gun you can point south whenever you wish. The Ottoman Empire, humiliated, begins its long decline, while Russia steps confidently onto the stage as a major European power. At home, your popularity soars. Nobles cheer the new lands and resources. Merchants see trade possibilities blooming. The military basks in its newfound glory. Even common people, who rarely benefit directly from imperial conquests, swell with pride. You're not just Catherine the Empress now, you're Catherine the Conqueror. But power breeds enemies. The Ottoman court swears revenge. France whispers about countermeasures. Britain debates strategies to contain Russia. Even within your own realm, some nobles mutter that war enriches the crown too much, centralizing power in your hands. Yet you face these concerns with poise. You know this is just one battle in a much larger game, and the board has plenty of moves left. Late one evening, standing on the balcony of your palace, you look south toward the Black Sea. The war has cost blood and treasure, but it has also given you something priceless: momentum. You can feel history bending, slowly but surely, toward your vision of a greater, stronger Russia. And you know the war game is far from over. The Ottoman victory gives you breathing room, but your eyes are already drifting westward, to Poland. Once a mighty kingdom, Poland in the late 18th century is a fractured shadow of itself, ruled by nobles more loyal to their own estates than to the crown. Its political system, with its notorious liberum veto, allows any noble to paralyze government decisions. To you, this isn't just weakness, it's opportunity. You begin with subtle influence, supporting your former lover, Stanisław August Poniatowski, as King of Poland. The relationship is more than personal, it's strategic. You once shared love, yes, but now what binds you is power. Through him, you attempt to stabilize Poland under Russian influence. But Polish nobles resist reform and foreign oversight, and uprisings erupt. Some Poles call you their benefactor, others call you their occupier. Either way, your hand is firmly on their national fate. Then comes the larger play, the first partition of Poland in 1772. Together with Prussia and Austria, you slice away chunks of Polish territory like carving a roast at a royal feast. Poland is powerless to resist, and Europe looks on in shock but does nothing. Why? Because everyone gets a piece of the pie. Your share gives Russia fertile land and strategic depth, further cementing your role as an unstoppable force in Eastern Europe. This partition isn't just about land, it's about precedent. You've shown the world you can dismember a sovereign nation with diplomatic finesse and military readiness and face little to no repercussions. European powers grumble, but secretly, they admire the boldness. They see that Catherine the Great doesn't just wage war, she rearranges the map. Inside Russia, however, some start to worry about the consequences of empire building. Polish resistance fighters, often romanticized as freedom fighters, attack Russian garrisons and assassinate officials. Yet you meet these threats with cold determination. For every rebellion, you tighten your control. For every insurgent captured, you make an example. In your mind, this isn't cruelty, it's necessity. An empire cannot be built on hesitation. The diplomatic dance continues. Frederick the Great of Prussia sees you as a rival, but also an occasional partner. Austria remains cautious, concerned that Russia's growing power might overshadow its own. France, already unstable, rants about your ambitions, but is too consumed by its own issues to intervene effectively. Britain watches, calculating trade and naval routes, quietly realizing that a stronger Russia changes the balance of power, not just in Europe, but globally. Meanwhile, you're using the wealth from Poland to accelerate your domestic ambitions. New towns and fortifications rise, and trade networks expand. You also expand the intelligence network started years before, ensuring you know every whisper in Warsaw, Vienna, and Berlin before it becomes a shout. Your relationship with Poniatowski, though cooled romantically, remains politically useful. You support him when it serves your aims, abandon him when it doesn't, and eventually leave him isolated as Poland's sovereignty continues to erode. You don't revel in this personally. It's simply the price of your strategy. Poland must either become a loyal client or cease to exist as an independent buffer state. As the decade closes, you stand back and look at a map of Europe. Russia is larger, stronger, and feared. Your critics call you ruthless. Your admirers call you visionary. But one thing is undeniable. You've changed the game, and Poland is the clearest evidence that Catherine the Great doesn't just rule Russia. She reshapes nations. Your armies may conquer land, but it is your intelligence network that keeps it. In a Europe obsessed with royal marriages and shifting alliances, secrets are more valuable than gold, and you intend to own as many as possible. From the start of your reign, you understood that information wins wars before a single shot is fired. Now, as your empire grows, your spy network expands alongside it. You recruit not just soldiers and diplomats, but merchants, artists, even mistresses of foreign ambassadors. Anyone with access to whispers that others consider private. You fund informants in Parisian salons, Viennese coffee houses, and even in the Ottoman court itself. Few know their payments come from Russia. Fewer still suspect their gossip changes history. Inside Russia, you build your own web of watchers. The court is full of dangerous ambition, nobles who smile to your face while plotting behind your back. Your secret police listen, record, and act. Sometimes the punishment is subtle. A chance reassignment to some faraway garrison, a sudden invitation to retire from public life. Other times it's harsher, sending a clear message that betrayal has consequences. Foreign diplomats quickly learn to respect your reach. The British envoy famously comments that nothing in St. Petersburg stays secret for more than a day. By morning, your ministers already know who said what and to whom. Even your lovers occasionally act as informal agents, delivering information wrapped in a kiss or a conversation shared in confidence. Some might call it manipulation. You call it governance. One of your greatest coups comes when your agents intercept Ottoman military planning before their generals even see it. With this intelligence, you reposition troops, sabotage supply lines, and preempt attacks before they can occur. The Ottomans are baffled, suspecting traitors in their own ranks, never realizing the leaks originate from your quietly placed agents. But spies don't just serve military goals. They protect your image. European courts churn out pamphlets portraying you as a scheming seductress or a tyrant. Some of these writings are laughable, some venomous, but all have the potential to influence politics. Your agents quietly buy off publishers, bribe writers, and plant favorable stories. By the time a pamphlet reaches Paris or Vienna, it often says what you want it to say. Not all intelligence work is pretty. Espionage often forces you to confront ugly truths about loyalty. You discover betrayal, not just from minor officials, but sometimes from those you trusted most. When you learn that one mid level noble, secretly aligned with Polish nationalists, has been leaking troop movements, you feel an ache of personal disappointment. Yet your response is swift and surgical: arrest, interrogation, and quiet exile. Mercy has its place, but not when it threatens the empire. Through all this, you manage the paradox of being both feared and admired. Your network allows you to predict uprisings, counter conspiracies, and manipulate alliances before they form. Some foreign envoys even joke, one doesn't negotiate with Russia, one negotiates with Catherine's spies. Late one evening, sitting in your study, surrounded by sealed reports and ciphered letters, you realize how much your intelligence web resembles the very nature of power itself. Invisible, delicate, and incredibly strong. You no longer just react to threats, you anticipate them, mold them, and sometimes even create them to justify your next move. In the chess game of Europe, you're not only playing pieces, you're reading your opponent's thoughts before they touch the board. Your next move in the grand game is bold, audacious, and destined to shock Europe. You set your sights on Crimea. The Crimean Peninsula, long a vassal state of the Ottoman Empire, is more than just a piece of land. It's a symbol, a gateway to warm water ports, fertile farmland, and a strategic platform for projecting Russian power into the Black Sea and beyond. The opportunity comes in the late 1770s. The Ottoman Empire, still staggering from its last war with you, struggles to maintain control over its vassals. Crimean Tatars, resentful of Ottoman oversight, flirt with independence, but are fractured and politically weak. You recognize the opening and move with calculated precision. Enter Grigory Potemkin, your trusted statesman, general, and, though your romantic relationship has cooled, still your closest confidant and ally. Potemkin sees Crimea not as just a military conquest, but as a chance to showcase Russia's destiny as a southern power. He helps engineer a pro-Russian coup among the Crimean elite, installing leaders willing to break from Ottoman control. But influence alone isn't enough. You need permanence. Over the next few years, Russia quietly builds roads, fortresses, and naval bases near Crimea, signaling to friend and foe alike that Russia is here to stay. The Ottoman Empire protests, of course, but its power is waning. When tensions erupt into another war in 1787, you are ready. The Russo-Turkish War of 1787 and 1792 further cements your ambitions. Russian armies sweep through enemy territory, while your revitalized Black Sea fleet dominates naval engagements. Potemkin, always the visionary, pushes hard for new settlements and infrastructure in Crimea, laying the foundations for future prosperity. By 1783, Crimea is formally annexed into the Russian Empire, a move that redraws the map of Europe and sends shockwaves through every royal court. Reactions vary. Britain, concerned about Russian access to warm water ports and Mediterranean trade routes, grows wary and increases its naval presence. France, still clinging to its Ottoman alliance, fumes but does little. Austria, your occasional ally, quietly admires the boldness while weighing its own interests in the Balkans. In short, everyone is paying attention, which is exactly what you intended. Back home, the annexation sparks a wave of patriotic pride. You travel south in 1787 to inspect your new territories, accompanied by Potemkin, who famously stages elaborate Potemkin villages to impress you and foreign dignitaries. Whether the story is exaggerated or not, the symbolism is clear. Russia is advancing, and you, Catherine, are leading it. The annexation also fulfills one of your deeper visions, giving Russia a stronger presence in the Black Sea and, by extension, the Mediterranean. You dream of liberating Orthodox Christians in the Balkans, perhaps even marching into Constantinople itself. Some call it the Greek Project, an ambitious plan to resurrect a Christian empire in the East under Russian guidance. While it remains more vision than reality, it reflects the scope of your ambitions, nothing less than redefining Russia as a true Mediterranean power. Crimea becomes a jewel in your crown, both practically and symbolically. It proves that your secret war game is not just about winning battles, but about reshaping geopolitics on a scale few rulers even dare to imagine. It also shows Europe that Catherine the Great is not content with maintaining the status quo. You are rewriting it. Late one night, Gazing at a map newly updated with Crimea shaded in Russian colors, you allow yourself a rare smile. The little German princess who once trembled on her journey to Russia now commands an empire that stretches farther than she ever dreamed. The annexation of Crimea has made you the dominant power in the Black Sea, but it also brings new challenges. Controlling the region is one thing, developing it is another. You know Crimea cannot simply be a military outpost. It must become a thriving part of the Russian Empire, a symbol of progress and permanence. Grigory Potemkin becomes your architect of this vision. His plans are as bold as your own: new ports, new roads, and entire cities built almost from scratch. Sevastopol rises as a naval base of unprecedented scale, while Kherson, designed as a shipbuilding center, grows rapidly. Potemkin envisions these cities as beacons of Russian power and modernity, projecting influence across the Black Sea. You tour the region yourself in 1787, traveling in a grand procession accompanied by diplomats, nobles, and foreign dignitaries. It's a spectacle meant to awe Europe and reassure your subjects. Legend has it that Potemkin stages fake villages along your route, Potemkin villages, to impress you. Whether true or not, the story becomes part of European political lore, symbolizing how perception can shape reality. And that's something you understand better than anyone. The development of Crimea also deepens your Greek project. Your dream of liberating Orthodox Christians and even marching into Constantinople is ambitious, perhaps unrealistic, but it drives your southern policies. You commission studies, maps, and even discussions of how a new Byzantium might look. Your allies and enemies alike debate whether Catherine actually intends to dethrone the Sultan in Istanbul, or whether it's simply a bargaining chip in your larger geopolitical game. Meanwhile, you face increasing opposition from Britain and France, both alarmed by your rapid expansion. Britain fears for its Mediterranean trade routes, while France sees its influence in the Ottoman Empire slipping away. These tensions create a dangerous environment where diplomacy is as crucial as military strength. You counter by strengthening alliances, particularly with Austria, ensuring that any coalition against you would think twice before acting. Domestically, Crimea's development brings both opportunity and controversy. Russian settlers and merchants flood the region, bringing agriculture, trade, and infrastructure, but tensions with Crimean Tatars simmer. Some resent Russian rule and stage uprisings, which your forces crush swiftly. To you, this isn't oppression but order, necessary to integrate the region into the empire. You also bring Orthodox Christianity deeper into Crimea, building churches and monasteries to symbolize Russia's cultural and religious presence. The annexation and subsequent development mark a turning point. Russia is no longer merely a northern empire. It's a southern one, too. For the first time, your fleets can sail freely into the Black Sea, projecting influence toward the Mediterranean. This access reshapes Russia's strategic horizon, making your empire an unavoidable player in European politics. Your enemies paint you as dangerous, even unhinged, a woman whose ambition threatens the balance of power. But your supporters see something else entirely: a visionary who refuses to let geography or tradition limit what Russia can become. To them, you are not just Catherine the Great, you are Catherine the Boundless. Late at night, reviewing reports from Sevastopol and Kherson, you can almost hear the hum of hammers and the crash of waves against newly built docks. Crimea isn't just land, it's your foothold into a future where Russia is not confined to the north, but has a seat at every table where global destiny is decided. The empire you are building is massive and ambitious, but ambition invites scrutiny and rebellion. In 1773, as you are consolidating Crimea and modernizing your armies, a thunderclap of insurrection shakes the Russian heartland: the Pugachev Rebellion. Amelyan Pugachev, a former Don Cossack, claims to be none other than your late husband, Peter III, miraculously alive and back to reclaim the throne. It's absurd, yet it strikes a chord among the oppressed serfs and disaffected Cossacks. His promises, freedom from serfdom, lower taxes, and revenge against the nobility, ignite a wildfire across the Volga region. For months, entire towns declare loyalty to him. Fortresses fall, local garrisons defect. The dream of progress you've been building threatens to crumble overnight. At first, you can hardly believe the reports. A pretender? After all these years? But the rebellion grows, forcing you to respond not with philosophy, but with raw force. You dispatch seasoned generals and elite troops to crush the uprising. Battles rage across the countryside, pitting ragged bands of rebels against disciplined imperial forces. Though the rebels fight with desperate ferocity, your army's organization and firepower eventually prevail. By late 1774, Pugachev is captured, paraded in an iron cage through Moscow, and publicly executed. The rebellion is over, but its lesson is burned into your mind. Russia is vast, diverse, and volatile. It can be modernized, yes, but its foundation, serfdom, remains unstable and explosive. The revolt also forces you to reconsider some Enlightenment ideals. You had once spoken about easing serfdom and liberalizing society, but the uprising makes you cautious. For now, you choose stability over reform. The nobility, fearful of future revolts, rallies around you, grateful for your decisive response. They see you not just as an enlightened ruler, but as a protector of their privileges. Internationally, your enemies seize on the rebellion to question your strength. Pamphlets circulate in London and Paris claiming that Russia is an empire built on sand, vulnerable to collapse. You counter this narrative aggressively, highlighting your victory and the loyalty of your core army. By the time European leaders digest the news, you've already moved on, using the rebellion's suppression to reinforce your authority. The rebellion also shifts your personal perspective. Once, you saw your power as the result of daring and vision. Now you understand it also rests on constant vigilance. You expand your intelligence network further, station more troops in sensitive regions, and reorganize local administration to prevent such uprisings from happening again. Yet, amid the turmoil, you still push forward. New schools open, trade expands, and foreign diplomats continue to marvel at your energy. They expect you to slow down after such a crisis, but you do the opposite, doubling your efforts to modernize and centralize Russia. One evening, after the rebellion's ashes settle, you sit in your study, reading Voltaire. He praises you in letters as a beacon of reason and strength, comparing you to the greatest rulers of antiquity. You smile at the words, but know the truth is messier. Enlightenment ideals sound beautiful in salons, but in Russia, reality demands iron and pragmatism. The Pugachev uprising reminds you of an old rule of power. An empire can be enlightened, but it must first be secure. And you, Catherine the Great, are determined to make sure that no pretender, no rebellion, and no foreign rival will ever again threaten what you've built. The rebellion has barely cooled when Europe plunges into chaos of its own. The French Revolution erupts in 1789, sending shockwaves through every royal court. You watch with a mix of fascination and alarm as the French people topple their monarchy, execute aristocrats, and declare a republic built on ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. At first, you are curious. You had long admired French philosophers and corresponded with some of them, even adopting Enlightenment-inspired reforms. But now you see their ideas turned into bloody reality, and it shakes you. If it can happen to the powerful Bourbon dynasty, could it one day happen in Russia? Your response is swift and pragmatic. You clamp down on the spread of revolutionary ideas in Russia, banning certain publications and watching intellectual circles more closely. You are not blind to the irony. You, who once championed Enlightenment thinking, now suppress the very ideology you once admired. But survival comes before philosophy. Russia cannot risk a revolution fueled by radical ideas and popular unrest, not when your empire is still stabilizing after Pugachev's rebellion. Meanwhile, you seize the opportunity created by France's distraction. The revolutionary turmoil weakens France's influence abroad, leaving power vacuums you can exploit. In Poland, where reformers push for a stronger constitution and more independence, you step in decisively. The Second Partition of Poland in 1793 sees Russia and Prussia once again carving up Polish territory. Poland's dream of reform and sovereignty is crushed, and your empire grows even larger. The Poles resist, of course, culminating in the Kosciuszko Uprising of 1794. It's a fierce, passionate rebellion, but your experienced armies overwhelm it. The Third Partition of Poland in 1795 erases the country from the map entirely. For the first time in centuries, Poland ceases to exist as an independent state, divided between you, Prussia, and Austria. It is one of your most controversial acts, but also one of your most enduring legacies, proof that Catherine the Great does not hesitate to use force and diplomacy to achieve her vision. While you're redrawing maps, you also keep an eye on your southern ambitions. The Black Sea region continues to develop. Crimea grows steadily, and you push new settlements deeper into the steppe. Potemkin, until his death in 1791, remains instrumental in these efforts, his grand vision intertwined with yours. His passing is a personal and political blow, yet you press forward, honoring his legacy by continuing the projects you planned together. Internationally, you are now one of Europe's most formidable rulers. Britain respects your strength, but fears your growing naval power. Austria alternates between cooperation and caution, while Prussia plays its own power games but cannot match your influence. Even revolutionary France, now consumed by its own wars, treats you as a force too significant to ignore. At home, you continue to walk a tightrope, promoting education and economic development while suppressing dangerous political radicalism. Your relationship with the Enlightenment becomes complicated. You still admire science, literature, and rational governance, but you no longer romanticize the masses. You have seen what happens when ideals ignite revolt, and you are determined that Russia will not follow France's bloody path. In private moments, you sometimes reflect on how much you've changed. The young woman who once dreamed of reform and freedom now rules with a firm, sometimes unforgiving hand. But you also know this: Russia is stronger, richer, and more respected than when you took the throne. You did what history demanded of you, even when it meant abandoning dreams for realities. As the French Revolution devours its own leaders and plunges Europe into war, you use the chaos to secure Russia's place as a true great power. With Poland erased from the map and Crimea firmly in your hands, your empire now stretches farther than even Peter the Great dreamed. Yet you are not content with borders alone. You want to leave a legacy of culture, infrastructure, and modernization that will outlive any battlefield victory. Your attention turns once again to education and administration. You expand state-sponsored schools, especially for noble families, and increase opportunities for women, carrying forward the ideals you embraced in your youth. You establish new provincial governments to better manage the vast territories, bringing order to regions that had long been loosely governed. Roads, canals, and trade routes expand, tying the empire together with stronger economic bonds. St. Petersburg, your beloved capital, thrives as a European cultural hub. Artists, architects, and scientists flock to your court. You commission new palaces and theaters, support literary societies, and collect vast libraries and art galleries. You want Russia not just to be powerful, but to be admired, a beacon of refined civilization equal to Paris, London, or Vienna. You also continue your legal reforms. Although you never fully abolish serfdom, a choice historians will debate endlessly, you push for more humane treatment of peasants, better judicial processes, and clearer administrative law. The famed nakaz, your great legislative instruction inspired by Enlightenment thinkers, remains one of your proudest intellectual achievements, even if practical realities forced compromises. But age and fatigue begin to catch up. Decades of ruling, scheming, and fighting leave their mark. Potemkin's death years earlier still haunts you, and though you take other companions, none match his combination of passion and vision. Court politics grow tiresome, with younger nobles eager for influence and old allies gradually passing away. You remain sharp, but you feel the weight of years pressing down on your shoulders. Internationally, the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte in France begins to reshape European politics. His early victories worry you, though you do not live long enough to see his full rise to power. Still, you sense that Europe is entering another period of dramatic change, and you quietly wonder how Russia will adapt after you are gone. Despite the fatigue, you work tirelessly until the end. Even in your final year, you are planning another war with the Ottoman Empire, considering how to push deeper into the Balkans, and possibly even realize the dream of taking Constantinople. You never see that dream fulfilled, but its echo will linger in Russian foreign policy for generations. On November 6, 1796, you suffer a stroke and die shortly after, leaving the throne to your son Paul. Your death shocks the court and the country. For more than 3 decades, you had been the unshakable center of Russian power. People mourn, but they also marvel. A foreign-born princess who seized power, held it against every challenge, expanded the empire beyond imagination, and left Russia culturally richer than ever before. When foreign diplomats write home about your passing, they don't call you a usurper or schemer. They call you what history will forever know you as Catherine the Great. Your death marks the end of an era, but your legacy lives on immediately, shaping Russia and the world long after you are gone. The empire you leave behind is nearly twice the size it was when you took the throne, a sprawling power that commands respect across Europe and Asia. Paul Fuss, your son, inherits the crown, but he is not you. Where you were pragmatic, he is impulsive. Where you built alliances, he alienates them. His policies quickly undo some of your careful diplomacy, angering the nobility and even parts of the military. Within a few short years, he is assassinated, replaced by your beloved grandson, Alexander I, who will lead Russia into the Napoleonic Wars. Yet even as others rise and fall, the foundation you built holds firm. Your reforms in administration, education, and law continue to influence Russian governance for decades. The cultural institutions you established, museums, libraries, academies, remain shining symbols of Russia's Enlightenment era. The lands you annexed in Crimea, the Black Sea region, and Poland permanently alter the geopolitical map. Even your unfulfilled dreams, such as the Greek project and the push into Constantinople, echo through Russian foreign policy long after your death. Your reputation, however, is more complicated. In Western Europe, pamphleteers still whisper salacious rumors about your lovers and personal life, myths that will persist for centuries. Some critics call you ruthless for crushing uprisings and partitioning Poland. Others accuse you of betraying Enlightenment ideals when they clashed with your need for control. Yet your admirers see a different picture. A ruler who understood power, who modernized an unwieldy medieval state, and who placed Russia on equal footing with the great powers of Europe. In Russia itself, you are remembered not only as an empress, but almost as a force of nature. Unyielding, visionary, and larger than life. The people call you Velikaya, the Great, and it is not just a title. It is an acknowledgement that you did what few rulers dare, seize power, hold it, and change the course of history. Looking back, your life is a testament to ambition and willpower. You arrived in Russia as a young German princess, unsure and untested, and through intellect, charm, and sheer determination, you remade yourself into one of history's most formidable rulers. You played Europe like a grand chessboard, outmaneuvering sultans, kings, and emperors while navigating court intrigue and personal scandal. You left behind an empire stronger, richer, and more respected than when you found it. And so, centuries later, when people tell your story, they speak not only of your conquests and lovers, but of your audacity to rule like no other woman of your time. Indeed, like no other ruler at all. You didn't just survive in a man's world. You dominated it, reshaping it to your vision. Your war game, the secret European strategy you crafted, wasn't just about battles or diplomacy. It was about proving that destiny bends not to tradition, but to those bold enough to seize it. And in that, Catherine, you succeeded spectacularly. Cool down. Cool 100 words. So what can we take away from this incredible story? Catherine the Great didn't just inherit a crown. She took it, held it, and made it shine brighter than anyone thought possible. She transformed Russia from a landlocked power on the fringes of Europe into a true empire that commanded oceans, shaped treaties, and forced other nations to rethink their own strategies. She proved that leadership isn't about where you come from, but what you dare to do once you arrive. A German princess with no natural claim to the Russian throne became its most famous ruler. She fought wars, outmaneuvered rivals, built cities, reformed laws, and even inspired philosophers who saw in her a living example of enlightened rule, though she never let philosophy stand in the way of survival. Her life also shows us the balance every leader must face. Ideals versus reality, vision versus compromise. Catherine believed in reason and progress, yet she crushed rebellion and held tight to institutions like serfdom when change threatened stability. She played a high-stakes game and won, but always at a cost. So what do you think? Does Catherine's legacy inspire you, or does it challenge how we view power and ambition? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your take. And if you enjoyed listening to this story as much as I enjoyed telling it, remember to hit like, share it with someone who loves history, and subscribe to the channel for more epic tales from our shared past.